Such a serious face, Nico.
Just running around here, just making sure everything's in order.
I'm
How
I
are you?
thought it was starting 3:55 Los Angeles time.
It is. We still have 2 minutes, and it's early, so it's
But I mean I see you, but usually the chairs are I don't see other people.
yeah. No, Rose is here, and
I thought it was starting 3:55 Los Angeles time.
I think there's some strange feedback thing going on here, but
But I mean I see you, but usually the chairs are I don't see other people.
yeah, people are hopefully still showing up. It's early in the day, so I think it's harder for people to get out of their meals and maybe get out of their beds to come at 3:55. Yeah, people are hopefully still showing up. It's early in the day, so I think it's harder for people to get out of their meals and maybe get out of their beds to come at 3:55. Yeah, I think it's like somewhere in the middle is sort of the Goldilocks zone. I hope that doesn't happen while we're on. Testing. Hello. So hey Hector, I don't know if you can hear me, but I'm getting some sort of weird feedback in here. Can you hear that?
I don't hear it, but I'll check on that right now.
Okay, thank you. Hello. Welcome. Hey Hector, I don't know if you can hear me, but I'm getting some sort of weird feedback in here. Can you hear that?
I don't hear it, but I'll check on that right now.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, Hector, basically what's happening is I'm talking or someone else is talking, and then about 5 seconds later, we hear it all again. Good, how are you? Welcome, Shabbat Shalom.
Got it. I know what it is. I'm gonna get rid of it right now.
Awesome, thanks, Hector. And then about 5 seconds later, we hear it all again. It's so funny. Sorry.
Got it. I know what it is. I'm gonna get rid of it right now.
Awesome, thanks, Hector. So bizarre, huh? What's that? Did you send out something that I did, but I don't know if I made it in the email. It might have been my fault. No. There was some like I don't know what happened, but it happened on Wednesday and they got it and it didn't make it shuffled. So I don't know. I have all the source sheets here, so it's gonna sort of be story time today. Yeah.
Retired teacher.
What's that?
I said I'm a retired teacher.
Oh, so there you go.
Yeah, I was retired. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, it should be all good.
Okay, awesome. Thanks, Hector. I'll let you know if it happens again.
Thank you.
Thank you. You can just wait a couple minutes. Hi.
Because some places it starts at 3:55, some say 4.
Right.
Nothing. That's how it goes.
Yeah. Might interest you in the first aliyah?
Oh, I have the lap.
Okay, sure. Is anybody else interested in taking an aliyah?
No, I'll pass that because I was raised in North.
Oh, I see. I hear you.
Yeah,
Okay.
I never forget. Family lighter was going to be for me and she would do it.
Hello. How are you?
Thank you. How are you?
Good. Shabbat Shalom. Interest you in first aliyah? Yeah. Sure. Aha, hello.
Hello.
Hello. Serdalia?
Huh?
Serdalia?
Australia down.
Agba?
Oh, can I grab my colleague?
There's probably one here we can borrow, right?
Oh, yeah. It should be from over there.
Help if you group on page, okay?
Okay, thank you, baby.
You're welcome.
Did you also want to do the Leela so it's a team, sort of a couple team work sort of situation?
Yeah,
Yeah, okay, great.
I'm down for that.
Great. All right. Well,
Good, how are you?
Doing good.
how you doing, George?
Good, how about you?
Good.
I'm doing very well.
Yeah, good.
I'm ready for Hanukkah tomorrow.
Yeah, are you doing something special?
We're gonna be I'm hiding presents. There's a tradition in the Catler family that we do. My mom was making latkes, me and my brother. Keeps the kids busy, right? So when you're in the kitchen cooking latkes, my mom hid me and my brother's gifts. You only get whoever saw Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, you get 2 lifelines instead of 3. 50-50 or ask the audience.
Nice.
It took me and my brother and like probably about 4 hours to find our gifts. This is when we were young.
Nice.
Yeah.
It is a good idea. It was like one of the best games that my mom created when we were young. It was like the best, and that's why I'm doing it. I'm doing it again tomorrow. We're gonna be playing Find the Presents, and I have some good hiding spots that I'm gonna hide this
Yeah,
Nice.
yeah, my parents' house tomorrow evening.
Oh, yeah?
Yes, that's where I'm gonna hide them. I'm gonna hide them really good.
Like a scavenger hunt, basically.
Great.
It's a scavenger hunt, but it's really cool though. It's really cool. We're boyfriend girlfriend.
Yeah, we're dating.
We're dating. We've been dating now for how long?
Almost 11 months.
Almost
I
11
think we've
months.
been doing a little year in January. We're so happy.
Yeah, we're very happy together.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm gonna give another 5 minutes. I think there's some confusion as to with the start time.
Great.
Yeah.
We're gonna just wait a couple more minutes because I think there was some confusion about the start time. So, as you were.
Yeah, you were getting started.
Yeah, there's.
One place it was 3:55, one place it was 4, like, on what they have outside today. For today, it's a 4.
Okay. So we'll have some people wondering at 4:05 and 4:10.
All I want is credit for showing up.
We'll just wait. We're just gonna wait a minute or two more.
I think we should start. Because first of all, it's not fair to keep people waiting a long time.
That's true. But we're also close to a minion and.
We end on time.
Yeah. No matter what.
We only end after Shabbat ends.
Yeah.
No matter what, you end on time.
Yeah.
This is one of the services where there's less pressure to begin on time.
Yeah. Perfect. All right. You have a minute? Where's my goods? All right, Shabbat Shalom, everyone. Tzolchem Tovim. Mincha. We'll start with Mincha, which can be found on page 214 in your red Lev Shalems. We'll start with Ashrei. Ashrei Yoshevetecha Od Yachalucha Selah. תהילת אדוני ידבר בי, ויברך כל פסח השם קודשו לעולם ועד, ואנחנו נברך ים את הווה עד עולם, הללויה. ובא לציון כל אתה הקדוש יושב תהילות ישראל וקרא זה אל זה ואמר תישאני רוח ואשמע אחרי קול רעש גדול וגבר עיניים ממקומו אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד צדקך צדק לעולם ותורתך אמת תיתן אמת ליעקב חסד לאברהם אשר נשבעת לאבותינו מימי קדם ברוך אדוני יום יום יעמוס לנו האל ישועתנו סלע אדוני צבאות ימהר משכב לנו אלוהי יעקב סלע ויבטחו בך יודעי שמך כי לא עזבת דורשך אדוני אדוני חפץ למען צדקו יגדיל תורה ויאדיר יתגדל ויתקדש שמי רבה ואלמד יברא כי אורותי ואמליך מלכותי ויחייכון ביום איכון ובחית כל בית ישראל בגלה בזמן קריב אמרו אמן יהי שמי רבה מברך לעולם עולמי עלמיה יתברך וישתבח ויתפאר ויתרומם ויתנשא ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתעלה השם אל קדושה בריחו לעילם יבוא ברכתה ושירתה ותושבחתה ונחמתה תמירם בעלמה ואמרו אמן כל השמיים ובארץ, לך אדוני הממלכה, והמנצח כל לראש. רוממו אדוני אלוהינו, והשתחוו לך רוממו אדוני אלוהינו, והשתחוו לך תשוב, כי קדוש אדוני אלוהינו. ימי די 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 די, ימי די די די, ימי די די What's that? Yes, please. Are we upside down? We're upside down. Around. How do I want to do this here? Yeah, I'll flip it like this. Very gingerly. I'll be on the right. If you want to be on the side, we'll do this. Yeah. All right.
We have a yacht.
What's that?
Mike, have a yacht from New York.
We might be tangled on this.
No.
Torah reading for this afternoon can be found in your Eitz Chaim Chumash on page 250, Parshat Miketz. Right, Miketz?
Yes.
And for those of you on Zoom at home following along from different Chumash or Tanakh, open to chapter 41 of Bereshit.
יגלה בדרי מלכותו עלינו בזמן קרוב יגון פלטתנו פלט עמו בית ישראל לכון חסר רחמים ומהר אמן הכל הבוגדו גודל לאלוהינו צנו כבוד לתורה צמוד אתה לא רוצה לעשות העלייה הראשונה? Rosa, would you like to come do the first aliyah? Amod.
Shoshana.
Shoshana.
Bella the Moshe.
Bella.
The Moshe.
ומשה, בת בלה ומשה, עלייה ראשונה.
Baruch Adonai Hamvarach.
Baruch Adonai Baruch
Baruch Adonai Hamvarach Leolam Ba'ed. Baruch Adonai Eloheinu Melech Haolam Asher B'Harbanu Mikol Hamim V'Natan Lanu Et Torato Baruch Adonai Noten HaTorah.
Amen. Vayi Miket Shnatayim Yamim Paroch Olehem V'mei Omer Al Yor V'men Ben Min Hayor Olot Sheva Parot Yifot Marav Riot Basar Vatirenu Ba'achu V'nei Vatirenu Ba'achu V'nei Sheva Parot Acherot Achal Olot Achrehem Min Hayorot Marav V'dakot Basar Vatamod Netzal Parot Asfat Hayor Vatochal Na Parot Rota Marav V'dakot Basar She'et Sheva Parot Yifot Marav Vabriot by Katsparo
Baruch Adonai Eloheinu Melech Haolam Asher Natan Lanu Torah Emet B'Hayei Olam B'Tochenu Baruch Adonai Noten HaTorah.
Amen. We have an open second. You have the third aliyah, right?
Yeah, I'm the third.
Okay. Would you like to come up with the second aliyah? Anybody?
I'll do the second.
You want second, and then
Yeah,
somebody
I'll
can
do
think
the
about the
third.
third.
Second.
Smarter. What's that? You'll do the third? Okay.
I'll do the second one first.
Oh, you do the second one together?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Sure.
we'll do the second one together.
All right.
Rachel Zachava.
Nalamon.
Rachel Zachava.
Zachava. Bat.
Bat mitzvah.
Okay.
And Yosef Yaakov,
Yosef Yaakov.
Ben Michael,
Ben Michael.
Rachel Malka,
Rachamaka. Aliyah hashniya.
Baruch Adonai Barach.
Baruch Adonai Baruch Olam Ba'ed
Baruch Adonai Olam Ba'ed. Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu Melech Haolam Asher Banu Mikol Haminim V'Natan Lanu Et Torato Baruch Atah Adonai Noten HaTorah.
Amen. Vayishan ve'echolom shenit b'nei sheva shibolim olev koneh echad briot v'tovot b'nei sheva v'tovot b'nei sheva shibolim dakot zrufot kadim tzomchot achareihen v'tivlena hashibolim adakot et sheva shibolim abriot v'amleot v'ikatz paro v'hinei chalom.
Baruch Adonai Eloheinu Melech Haolam Asher Natan Lanu Torah Emet B'Chayei B'Tevenu Baruch Atah Adonai Noten HaTorah.
Amen. Nalamod. Who's coming up for number 3?
I'm doing number 3 right here.
No, wait, somebody else.
You
Oh,
just did
no,
them.
you just did one together. But thank you for the enthusiasm.
Yeah.
Nalamod. גרשון בן משה בשושן, העלייה השלישית.
Page 251, verse 8.
Baruch Adonai Baruch.
Baruch Adonai Baruch Le'olam Va'ed.
Baruch Adonai Baruch Le'olam Va'ed. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher baruch rabbanim mikol ha'amim v'natan leTorto. Baruch atah Adonai noten ha'Torah.
Amen.
Amen. Vayi baboker v'tilei merucho. Vayishlach vayikra kol chatumei Mitzrayim et kol chachamea. Vayisaper paro lahem et chalamo vein poterotam leFaro. וידבר שר המשקים אל פרעה, את פרעה לאמור, את חטאותיי אני מזכיר היום, פרעה קצב על עבדיו וייתן אותי במשמר, בית שר הטבחים אותי ואת שר האופים, ונחלם חלום בלילה אחד, אני והוא איש כפתרון חלמו, חלמנו, ושם ניתנו נער עברי עבד לשר הטבחים, ונספר לו ויפתור לנו את חלומותינו, איש כחלומו פתר. ויהי כאשר פתר לנו כן היה, אותי השיב על קני, ואותו תלה, וישלח פרעה, ויקרא אל יוסף, את יוסף ויחצהו מן הבור, ויגלח ויחלף שמלתיו ויבוא אל פרעה.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lanu Torat emet v'chayei lotam l'chenu. Baruch atah Adonai noten ha'Torah.
Amen. נא לעמוד, המגביה והגוללת.
Joey, Tony, bring the chair.
וזאת התורה ששם משה לבני בני ישראל על פי אדוני ביד משה. תנאים כי למחזיקים בה בתומכיה מאושר. עץ חיים כי למחזיקים בה בתומכיה מאושר. דרכיה דרכי נועם וכל צבאותיה שלום. דרכיה דרכי נועם וכל צבאותיה שלום. Oh, sorry. It's okay. Thank you. All right. מזמור של יום השבת, טוב להודות אדוני לשמך עליון, להגיד בבוקר חלקתך ובמלכך באמונתך בלילות, עליה טוב עלינה ועליה גיון התינוקי, לימדתני אדוני בחוריך, עושה ידיך ארנן, מגד ומלכך אדוני מאוד, עמדו מחשבותיך, ככלל לא ידע וכסיל לא יבין את זאת, תודה רבה. יזרוק השנים כמו אצל יציץ וכל בועי אבן וישמדה ליד ותעברם לעולם אדוני הנה אויביך אדוני כי הנה אויביך יאבדו פרצו כל בועי אבן ותלם ירם חבלם ותלם רענן ותנאים תשורה וחכמים עליהם מרעים תשמענו אדוני צדיקתם יפרח ארץ בלבן יזכה שתולים בבית אדוני בחצות אלוהינו יפריחו שם עוד ינובון בשבע דשנים ורעננו יהיו להגיד בבוקר ישר שצורי ולא עוולה תבוא. יהללו את שם אדוני כי נשגב שמו לבדו. הודו על הארץ ושמיים וירם קרן לעמו תהילה לכל חסידיו לבני ישראל עם קרבו הללויה. מיהו זה מלך הכבוד, אדוני צבאות הוא מלך הכבוד, סלע. יוחאי משהו אדוני בראש. כי לכך טוב נתתי לכם תורתי, אל תעזובו, עץ חיים היא למאחזים בך, ותומכך מאושר, דרכיך דרכי נועם, וכל נתיבותיך שלום. השיבנו נא אליך ונשוב חדש ימינו כקדם. Continue on page 222 with Hatzikadosh. ייקדש ויקדש שמי רבה. בעלמא דברה קיותיהם נכמלכותי, בחיי חונב יום החונב בחיי לכל בית ישראל, בעגלה בזמן קריב אמרו אמן. יהי שמי רבה מברך לעולם מעלמיה. יתברך ויסתבח ויתפאר ויתרומם ויתנשא ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתעלה שמי קודשה בריחו. לעילה מן כל ברכתה ושגרתה תושבחתה ונחמתה תמירן בעלמא ואמרו אמן. Continue with the silent Amidah. Remember to flip forward to page 430 to add Al Hanisim for Hanukkah. you're still davening in private Amidah, please continue to do so. We're going to proceed with the repetition on page 223. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu ve'Elohei Avotenu, Elohei Abraham, Elohei Yitzchak, Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, Elohei Leah, האל הגדול, הגיבור והנורא, אל עליון, גומל חסדים טובים וקונה הכל, וזוכר חסדי אבות, ומביא גואל לבני בניהם למען שמו באהבה. מלך עוזר ופוקד ומשיר מגן, ברוך אתה אדוני. מגן אברהם ופוקד שרה, אתה גיבור לעולם אדוני, מחיים מתים אתה רב להושיע, משיב הרוח ומוריד הגשם, מחלקל חיים בחסד, מחיים מתים ברחמים רבים, סומק נופלים ברופא חולים ומתיר אסורים, ומקיים אמונתו לשני עפר, מי כמוך בעל גבורות ומדומה לך, מלך ממית ומחיה ומצמיח ישועה, ונאמן אתה לחיות מתים, ברוך אתה אדוני מחיה המתים. נקדש את שמך בעולם, כשם שמקדישים אותו בשמי מרום, כך כתוב על יד ניבך וכרזה אל זה ואמר. קדוש, 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 אדוני צבאות, מלוך הארץ כבודו, לעומתם ברוך יאמרו. ברוך כבוד אדוני ממקומו, ודברי קודשך כתוב לאמור. ימלוך אדוני לעולם, מלכי ציון לדור ודור, הללויה, לדור ודור נגיד גודלך, ונצח נצחים קדושתך נקדיש, בשבחה אלוהינו, מפינו לא ימוש לעולם ועד, כי אל מלך גדול וקדוש אתה, ברוך אתה אדוני האל הקדוש. אתה אחד ושמך אחד, ומי כמך ישראל גוי אחד בארץ, תפארת גדולה ועטרת ישועה, יום מנוחה וקדושה לעמך נתת. אברהם יגל יצחק ירנן, יעקב ובניו ינוחו בו, מנוחת אהבה ונדבה, מנוחת אמת ואמונה, מנוחת שלום ושלווה והשקט ופתח פתח, מנוחה שלמה שאתה רוצה בך. יכירו בניך וידעו כי מאיתך כי מנוחתם, ועל מנוחתם יקדישו את שמך. אלוהינו, אלוהי אבותינו, רצה במנוחתנו, קדשנו במצוותיך, ותן חלקנו בתורתך. סבינו מטובך ושמחנו בישועתך, ותהא ליבנו לעבדך באמת, וחנכילנו אדוני אלוהינו באהבה וברצון שבת קודשך, ונוחה בישראל מקדשי שמך, ברוך אתה אדוני וקדש השבת. רצה אדוני אלוהינו בעמך ישראל ותפילתם, והשב את העבודה לדביר ביתך, ותפילתם באהבה ברצון, ותהיה לרצון תמיד עבודת ישראל עמך, תחזינה עינינו, ותשובך לציון ברחמים. ברוך אתה אדוני המחזיר שכנתו לציון, מודים אנחנו לך שאתה אדוני אלוהינו ואלוהי אבותינו לעולם ועד. אסור חיינו מגן אישנו אתה הוא לדור ודור, נודה לך ונספר לתהילתך על חיינו וסורים בידיך, ועל נשמותינו הפקודות לך, ועל ניסיך שבכל יום עמנו, ועל נפלאות וטובתך שבכל עת ערב בוקר וצהריים, הטוב כי לא חלו רחמך, והמרחם כי לא תמו חסדיך מעולם קיווינו לך. על הניסים ועל פורקן, ועל הגבורות ועל תשועות, ועל המלחמות שעשית לאבותינו ואמותינו בימים ההם בזמן הזה, בימי מתתיהו בן יוחנן כהן גדול, השמונה ובניו, כשעמדה מלכות יוון הרשעה על עמך ישראל לחשגיחם תורתך, להעבירם מחוקי רצונך, ואתה ברחמך הרבים עמדת לכם בעת צרם, רפת את ריבם, דנת את דינם, נקמת את נקמתם, מסרת גיבורים ביד חלשים, רבים ביד מעטים, וטמאים ביד טהורים, ורשעים ביד צדקים, וזדים ביד עוסקי תורתך, ולך עשית שם גדול וקדוש בעולמך, ולעמך ישראל עשית תשועה גדולה ופורקן כיום הזה, ואחר כן באו בניך לדביר ביתך, ופינו את היכלך, וטיהרו את מקדשך, והדליקו נרות בחצרות קודשך, וקברו 8 ימי חנוכה להודות ולהלל לשמך הגדול. על כולם יפרח ויתרומם שמך מלכנו תמיד לעולם ועד וכל חיים ידוך סלע וילוכו את שמך באמת האל ישועתנו ועזרתנו סלע ברוך אתה אדוני הטוב שמך ולך נאה להודות שלום רב ישראל עמך ועל כל יושבי תבל תשים לעולם כי אתה הוא מלך אדון לכל השלום וטוב עיניך לברך את עמך ישראל בכל עת בכל שעה בשלומך ברוך אתה אדוני המברך את עמו ישראל בשלום. And we're going to continue with Kaddish Shalem. ויתגדל ויתקדש שמי רבה בעלמא דברה קיותי והמליך מלכותי בחיי חון וביום אחרון ובחיי כל בית ישראל בגלה בזמן קריב אמרו אמן יהי שמי רבה מברך לעולם על מי עלמיה יתברך וישתבח ויתפאר ויתרומם ויתנשא ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתעלה שמי קודשה בריחו לעילה מן כל ברכתה ושירתה תושבחתה ונחמתה דמירן בעלמה ואמרו אמן תתקבץ לא תהונו ואהבתנו לכל ישראל וכל רב הון דשמיא ואמרו אמן יהי שלום רב מן שמיא והחיים עלינו וכל ישראל ואמרו אמן עושה שלום במרומיו הוא יעשה שלום עלינו וכל ישראל וכל יושבי תבל ואמרו אמן עלינו לשבח לאדון הכל כתוב בתורת אחרונים לא לעולם ועד ונאמר בהארוני למלך על כל הארץ ביום ההוא יהיה ארוני אחד ושמו אחד. Kaddish Yatom Mourner's Kaddish can be found on page 232. יתגדל ויתקדש שמי רבה בעלמא דברה קיותי והמליך מלכותי בחייכון וביומכון ובחיי כל בית ישראל בעגלה בזמן קריב ואמרו אמן יהי שמי רבה מברך לעולם ולמי עלמיה יתברך וישתבח ויתפאר ויתרומם ויתנשא ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתהלל שמי קודשה בריחו לעילה מן כל ברכתה ושירתה תושבחתה ונחמתה דמירן בעלמה ואמרו אמן יהי שלום רבה מן שמיא וחיים עלינו ועל כל ישראל ואמרו אמן עושה שלום במרומיו הוא יעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל ואמרו אמן. צהריים טובים everyone. So we can take a little break here for get something to eat and we can come back together in like say 5 or 10 minutes to have a little shiur. Yeah. Thank you everyone for jumping in and thank you for the help. It's always a challenge to see the ship. Have you come to many like Divine Customer list? Yeah. Oh, amazing. Great. We're both in good. I'm one of two Dominican here, yeah. Ben Siegel. Yeah, he was here last year. And
Here in Margaret Road. She put it on the alley out. I'm not even scared anymore, but I understand I've been through worse relationships, but this is the best thing I've ever had. I was in really worse ones before I met him.
Oh, thank you.
Scared. We've been dating now for 11 months, almost 11 months.
That's huge. Wow.
And our 11 months is on the 22nd, our 1 year of being together is on January 22nd. We made it official.
Amazing.
That's when the sun went down.
What did you say?
Right when the sun was going down.
So I wonder.
Getting more romantic than that.
I wonder which of these mics actually projects. Oh, thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. Appreciate that.
We went to, me and my dad went to Denver, Colorado. We drove right through there when we did our road trip.
Mm-hmm.
I think we did stop somewhere in Denver, but not like Evergreen.
Mm.
But we did drive through.
Nice. It's beautiful. It is really beautiful.
Yeah, my dad and I went through that area of Colorado on our way back from our road trip in the south.
Through Evergreen.
Oh yeah?
Yeah, we stayed somewhere near in or near Denver. I forget where exactly.
Okay, cool. Yeah, we didn't spend much time in Denver. We were really just in Evergreen. We went to Boulder for
I've been
an
to
afternoon.
Boulder.
It's great.
Boulder. It's
Yeah.
really nice, twinkle town.
Yeah. Yeah.
Really nice.
Yeah. I'm gonna attempt to see if we can get people to use the mic today. I'm gonna put it right here. This one isn't the one that projects into the room. I think it's just for the recording, but
Alright.
I'm gonna put it right here if that's okay with you guys. So if you wanna pass it around maybe, that would be cool.
You know, Rabbi, there's also for the kids, there's also a Hanukkah story for the kids. It's about the Hanukkah bear.
Hanukkah bear?
Yeah,
What's
it's like a Santa Claus, but it's a Hanukkah bear.
Oh, that's funny. You know, when I was growing up, I saw this cartoon about like the Hanukkah donkey. I don't know if anybody remembers this.
I remember it.
Do you remember the Hanukkah? What was the deal with the Hanukkah donkey?
I don't know.
Like, I just remember a Hanukkah donkey, and it was like a cartoon, and no one else seems to remember it. But you remember it.
Yeah.
Okay.
The one that I made up is called the Hanukkah bear. And
Uh-huh.
Hanukkah bear makes a list of the kids who are naughty, the kids who are nice,
Mm-hmm.
and whoever's naughty, they only get one pizza gelt, and those good kids get the presents.
That's
how it
funny.
works.
That is funny.
That was my favorite story that my grandmother ever told, and I actually believed it.
Mm-hmm.
Never made on the naughty list of the Hanukkah bear list.
Mm-hmm. All right, folks, we're going to get started here in a minute or two. Everyone should have a source sheet in front of their chair. If I missed you, I have a couple more up here. It's going to be a lot of story time, so I'm going to be doing a lot of reading in the beginning, and then we're going to have time for questions in between each source. So, just in another minute, we'll start. Oh, that was my struggle every day in Israel. Like, no one ever just gives you napkins, so you have to go up and ask, like, "Shok mafilot," and they're like, "Yeah, it's right there," you know. They never give you salt. You always have to ask for salt too. Yeah.
Right.
Apparently, ice isn't the thing when it comes to making your drinks cold there either.
Oh, really? What do you mean? They just don't give you? I feel like I never.
It depends where you go.
Yeah, I guess that's true, huh? I never got many ice drinks. I always get hot stuff, even when it's hot, usually. So.
A water that one place I went to when I was on birth break.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't have ice in the restaurant we were at.
Oh, really? I mean, it is the Middle East, so you know. Yeah. All right. So let's get started here. Like I said, everyone should have a source sheet in front of you. And so, is somebody willing to just read the title of this after Seder Shlishi? Go ahead.
The Hanukkah stories about the book of the Maccabees, number 2 and number 22 out of 30.
Great, perfect. So it says the Hanukkah stories, right? Interestingly enough, Hanukkah is a minor holiday, right? Sort of mentioned this earlier today, and this is something we hear every year. You know, Hanukkah feels very important because of how it lands sort of in the season, let's say the other holiday season, right? But it's also become so important in American Jewry for that reason, right? There's like, we have this like winter holiday that we celebrate that sort of happens at the same time as other things, and also it's become really important with the founding of the state of Israel and sort of a shift towards sovereignty and the ability to sort of defend ourselves in our own land. So it's really sort of gained this status that I sort of think goes beyond what we say when we say, oh, it's just a minor holiday. It actually is a significant holiday. I won't say it's a major holiday because that's not really, wouldn't be accurate, but it's significant, right? And interestingly enough, it's about the story of the Maccabees, right? And the story of the Maccabees come in a couple of books. Specifically, we're going to talk about Maccabees 1 today. But it's so funny because the book of the Maccabees is not part of our canon, right? It's not part of the sort of codified Tanakh. It's not one of the books in our Tanakh at all. It's apocryphal, which means it's a work that was not canonized, not included in that official collection, is sort of like hidden in outside. The word apocrypha actually means it comes from this idea to hide, right? But we have this story about Hanukkah that we all sort of seem to know, and we all have our versions of it, right? What are some, if you could just shout out, when you think about the Hanukkah story, just like in a word or two, what do you think of? Lighting candles, great.
Making latkes.
Making latkes, I heard making latkes too.
Oil.
Oil? An oil? Great. We're thinking about oil from this morning. Great, yes?
And the jelly-filled donuts, of course.
Jelly-filled donuts with ganiot. Anything else?
Eating dairy for Judith.
Eating dairy for Judith. Cool. And I'm sorry, I missed what you said. The Maccabees. Great. It's funny. So we heard oil, right? Great. So I'm not going to give it away. So what we're going to do is I'm going to read a little bit through the book of Maccabees here. We're not going to read it all. We're going to start on verse 28 of Maccabees 1, chapter 2. And it's going to be sort of story time here. And so you'll see the Hebrew and the English side by side here. Maccabees was originally composed in Hebrew, but we have no existing versions of it in Hebrew, and it really only survived in the survived in the Greek. And this translation is a translation. There are many translations that have been done of the Maccabees into Hebrew. So don't take what you see in the Hebrew as like, oh, this is the Hebrew, because it's not. It's a modern translation. So just keep that in mind. And so is this English translation. It's a little bit antiquated, but it's still really cool to have. So I'm going to start reading at verse 28, and I want you to just think about, what are you hearing? What are you not hearing? What's standing out to you as I read this? Okay. And Mattatyahu cried throughout the city with a loud voice, saying, "Whosoever is zealous of the law and maintaineth the covenant, let him follow me." So he and his sons fled into the mountains and left all that they ever had in the city. Then many that sought after justice and judgment went down into the wilderness to dwell there, both they and their children and their wives and their cattle, because afflictions increased sore upon them. Translation's a little bit, little bumpy, but we'll go with it. Now, when it was told that the king's servants and the hosts that it was at Jerusalem in the city of David, that certain men who had broken the king's commandment were gone down into secret places in the wilderness, they pursued after them. So people fled the king's decree and they went down into the wilderness. And having overtaken them, they camped against them and made war against them on the Sabbath day, on Shabbat. And they said to them, "Let that which you have done hitherto suffice. Come forth and do according to the commandment of the king, and ye shall live. You will live. If you follow the order, you're going to live." I'm going to take us a little bit out of the Old English here as much as I can. But they said, we're not going to come out, and neither will we follow the king's command to violate Shabbat, to profane the Sabbath day. So then they gave them battle, they fought with them. And they didn't respond to them. They neither cast a stone at them, nor stopped the places where they were hiding, but they rather said, "Let us all die in our innocency. Heaven and earth will testify for us that ye put us to death wrongfully." So they, that is the Greeks, the Syrian Greeks, rose up against them in battle on the Sabbath day, and they slew them with their wives and their children and their cattle, to the number of 1,000 people. Now when Mattatyahu and his friends understood, they mourned for them. And one of them said to the other, "If we do as our brethren have done, and fight not for our lives and laws against the heathen, they will now quickly root us out of the earth." At that time, therefore, they decreed, saying, "Whosoever shall come to make battle with us on the Sabbath day, we will fight against him. Neither will we die all, as our brethren that were murdered in those secret places." So I'm just going to pause there. And I just want to hear a couple of reflections. We have, as I'm sure many of you know, this is also recorded for a podcast. So we have that microphone, which doesn't project into the room. But I ask if you're comfortable with it to use this microphone, and maybe Joey can help just passing it up and down when we respond to questions. And just say your name at the beginning so we can all get to know each other, just your first name. Thank you, Joey. You're welcome. So with this first section of the story, what stands out to you here, if anything?
The people were willing to die for Shabbat. They were willing to say, "We will not fight or not do anything."
Mm-hmm.
At that time,
right?
To honor Shabbat.
Mm-hmm. Great. So people were not willing to violate Shabbat. They essentially became martyrs because they weren't willing to violate Shabbat. Thank you. What else stands out to us? We see the theme of, so we see Mattatyahu's reaction. What is his reaction to this event?
That he's telling people, whoever is on his side, to follow him. Sure.
Okay. So he says, yeah, he's trying to gather some supporters.
Right.
But I think what stands out in this moment is he sees that that his brethren, his people, wouldn't violate Shabbat when they had to go to battle, and he said, if we do that, we're gonna die. Like it's gonna be over for us. So he says, if people come to fight with us on Shabbat, we're gonna fight back, right? Which is a pretty significant statement, because as we know, sort of like violating Shabbat's not something that we tend to do or try to do unless it's very, very, very urgent. Right?
Pikuach nefesh.
Pikuach nefesh, exactly. So this is actually one of the earliest instantiations of the idea of pikuach nefesh, of being able to override Shabbat or the festivals in order to save a life. Great. So I'm going to read through. Thank you, Joey. And I'm going to skip around a little bit, but I'm going to start right here at verse 22 in the next section. And after that, Antiochus had smitten Egypt. He returned again in the 143rd year, and went up against Israel and Jerusalem with a great multitude. And he entered proudly into the sanctuary and took away the golden altar and the candlestick of light and all the vessels thereof, and the table of the showbread and the pouring vessels and the vials and the censers of gold and the veil and the crown and the golden ornaments that were before the temple, all which he pulled off. He took also the silver, the gold, and the precious vessels, and also he took the hidden treasures which he found. And when he had taken all away, he went into his own land, having made a great massacre, and spoke very proudly. Therefore, there was a great mourning in Israel in every place where they were, so that the princes and elders mourned. The virgins and the young men were made feeble, and the beauty of women was changed. Every bridegroom took up lamentation, and she that sat in the marriage chamber was in heaviness. And the land also was moved for the inhabitants thereof. In all the house of Jacob was covered with confusion. So we're going to flip forward now to verse 39 on the next page, which is about in the middle of the page. It says, her sanctuary, that is the temple, was laid waste like a wilderness. So at this point, the Maccabees have sort of come up and they've defeated the Greeks, and they're seeing sort of the state of the temple. Her sanctuary was laid waste like a wilderness. Her feasts were turned into mourning, her Sabbaths into reproach, her honor to contempt. Actually, maybe that's not exactly. Let's just keep reading. As had been her glory, so was her dishonor increased, and her excellency was turned into mourning. Moreover, the king Antiochus wrote to his whole kingdom that all should be one people, and everyone should leave his laws. So all the heathen agreed according to the commandment of the king. Also, many of the Israelites consented to his religion and sacrificed unto his idols and profaned the Sabbath day. We haven't gotten to actually them discovering the temple. I sort of jumped the gun, but let's keep going. So many of them also sacrificed unto idols and profaned Shabbat. But the king had sent letters by messengers unto Jerusalem and the cities of Judah that they should follow the strange laws of the land and forbid burnt offerings and sacrifice and drink offerings in the temple, and that they should profane the Shabbat, the Sabbaths and the festivals. And now jumping over to verse 49, and whosoever would not do according to the commandment of the king, he said, would die. In the selfsame manner, he wrote he to his entire his whole kingdom, and appointed overseers over all the people, commanding the cities of Judah to sacrifice city by city, meaning they had to sacrifice to foreign gods. Then many of the people were gathered unto them, to wit, every one that forsook the law, and so they committed evils in the land and drove the Israelites into secret places. So essentially what's happening here is the king has issued this decree: abandon the Israelite religion, abandon your temple, sacrifice to our gods, violate Shabbat, violate the festivals. Now continue on with verse 34. This is the longest segment, so now when Lasai saw his army put to flight, and the manliness of Judah's soldiers, and how they were ready either to live or die valiantly, he went to Antioch, and gathered together a company of strangers. And having made his army greater than it was, he proposed to come again into Judea. Then said Judas and his brethren, behold, our enemies are discomfited. Let us go up and cleanse and dedicate the sanctuary. So dedicate, right? This word Chanukah is dedication. It comes from the verb lechanech, which means to dedicate. So that's where this is coming in here. Upon this, all the hosts assembled themselves together. So the army came together, and they went up into Mount Zion. And this is when they see the sanctuary. And when they saw the sanctuary desolate, and the altar profaned, and the gates burned up, and the shrubs growing in the courts as in a forest, or in one of the mountains, and the priest chambers pulled down, they rent their clothes, they tear their clothes, like doing kriya when we mourn, and made great lamentation, and cast ashes upon their heads, and fell down flat on the ground upon their faces, and blew an alarm with the trumpets, and cried toward heaven. Then Judas appointed certain men to fight against those that were in the fortress, until he had cleansed the sanctuary. So he chose priests of blameless conversation, such as had pleasure in the law, who cleansed the sanctuary and bore out the defiled stones into an unclean place. And when they consulted what to do with the altar of burnt offerings, which was profane, they thought it best to pull it down, lest it should be a reproach to them, because the heathen had defiled it. Wherefore they pulled it down, and laid upon it stones in the mountain of the temple in a convenient place, until there should come a prophet to shew what should be done to them. Then they took whole stones according to the law and built a new altar according to the former, and made up the sanctuary and the things that were within the temple and the hallowed courts. They made also new holy vessels, and into the temple they brought the candlestick, the menorah, and the altar, burnt offerings, and of incense, and the table. And upon the altar they burned incense, and the lamps that were upon the candlestick they lighted, that they may give light in the temple. Furthermore, they set loaves upon the table and spread out the veils and finished all the work. So now they've reclaimed the temple. They've filled it up again with all of the vessels, including the menorah. So before we read on, don't go ahead here. What do you notice about this story? I know it was long, so if nothing, that's totally fine. But what do you notice about the story? What's there? What's not there? What's missing? Sure.
Well, they're repairing the damage that was caused.
Right. Great. So they're repairing the damage that was caused. That's part of our classic story. Anything else? I'm just going to repeat a couple verses here, and let me know what you notice here, if I can find it. So this is verse 49. And upon the altar they burned incense, and the lamps that were upon the candlestick they lighted, that they might give light in the temple. Something very big is missing here. The oil. The oil is missing. This is the story that we all know is the miracle of the oil that should have lasted for 1 day that ended up lasting for 8 days. And this is in the book of Maccabees, right? What's that? Right, it's legendary. It's a legend. So it's a story, sort of legendary story. So,
And
yes.
it's about the Festival of Lights.
About the Festival of Lights. This is
Also, the miracle of what happened in the Israel when the temple was destroyed. They were able to restore, and then said that they only had a little bit of oil that wouldn't last
right
for eight nights.
And that's this miracle. And that's the famous story, but that story doesn't exist in what we just read, which is interesting, right? So let's move on to the next source, which is Shabbat 21b on the next page. And the Gemara, yeah. So, no, actually, this is going to be a different source. So Shabbat 21b, it starts with My Chanukah. What is Hanukkah? So I'm gonna just read this really quick. And why are the lights kindled on Hanukkah? The Gemara answers, the sages taught in Megillat Ta'anit, on the 25th of Kislev, the days of Hanukkah are 8, and one may not eulogize on them, and one may not fast on them. What is the reason? When the Greeks entered the sanctuary, they defiled all the oils that were in the sanctuary by touching them. And when the Hasmonean monarchy overcame them and emerged victorious over them, they searched and found only one cruse of oil that was placed with the seal of the high priest, undisturbed by the Greeks. And there was sufficient oil there to light the candelabrum for only 1 day. A miracle occurred, and they lit the candelabrum from it 8 days. The next year, the sages instituted those days and made them holidays with recitation of Hallel, which we did this morning, and special thanksgiving and prayer and blessings. So what do we notice here? What is here? Yeah.
Okay, I always felt that Hanukkah should be more than about oil, but what we're reading there is more traditional.
Right, it's more like.
Also, simplifications on that. Simplification of Hanukkah to me, because I always felt that Hanukkah should be more about oil burning longer than we expected. But that happens in our own kitchens sometimes. I always felt that it should be more than that, and yet I think in our society people want to turn it into Christmas somehow. Turn it into Jewish Christmas, which it's not.
So right, but the main thing that we're saying here is that this is a shortened version of the story. It's a lot shortened. I don't know. There you go. Yeah.
Years later, thank you.
Yeah.
There would not be a Jewish community to be born into.
Interesting.
Well,
So
there are
So let's not. I want to sort of pull us back to the text right here. I think this is an interesting conversation, maybe one for after the shore. But yes, please go ahead. Right. So we're saying that like just the Greeks touching the oil actually made it unusable. It was no longer sanctified. That's interesting. And the main thing here is that they actually do mention the oil, right? We don't get that in the first book of Maccabees. We get it in the Gemara. And they even ask, it's kind of a funny question, my Chanukah, what is Hanukkah? I don't even know, what is that, you know? So they tell the story, and so we see the story that we know, right? That we all tell every single year. Which I think tells us a little something about storytelling. Yes, go ahead, please. So it's hard to say, and the next source that we look at, we're gonna see it appear again. But because of when the Talmud was compiled, and because of when this next source, there's like a 700-year window in which it was potentially written. It's not exactly clear which came first, which I think is what makes this kind of cool. So now we have this. We're gonna move on to the next source here. This is many pages, and I want to just be mindful of our time. I have highlighted some parts and not others, but let me just tell you a little bit about this work, Megillat Antiochus, which is also called Megillat HaChashmonim, the scroll of the Hasmoneans, or the scroll of Antiochus, right? So this is another apocryphal work, and it recounts the story of Hanukkah and other military victories of the Maccabees. And it was potentially composed between the 1st and the 5th centuries, which is what makes it sort of difficult to figure out, was this the original sort of like recording of the miracle of the oil, or was it the Talmud? It's not really clear, because there's some overlap there. And what's cool about this particular work is that, yes, it's apocryphal, but it's actually read in a lot of Italian synagogues still, in the same way that we would read Megillat Esther on Purim, right? And it tells the story of the military campaign, the military victory, the oppression, and then the oil. So it actually sort of brings these two things together. What we don't have the idea of the oil in the Maccabees. We do have it in the Gemara, and then we have both the military victory and the oil story in Megillat Antiochus. So I'm just going to sort of speed through this. So in Megillat Antiochus, so we had this decree that was banning the Sabbath, new moon, and circumcision. So we already know that. And then if we jump down to verses 36, 37, we have the moment of the Israelites reacting and saying, "Let us go to the cave, and let us run away and not be forced to violate Shabbat," right? But unfortunately, their plan was betrayed by this specific person called Bagris, who then sent people down and said like, you know, essentially, do as we do, leave your God, violate Shabbat. And then people of Israel said, we remember what we were commanded, right? To not violate Shabbat, to not violate the festivals. And then Bagris so all these Israelites were in a cave, and this man Bagris bought all this wood and essentially burned them in the cave, which is horrific. Which is the same sort of a riff on the story that we heard in Maccabees. And then again, here we have this moment of Mattatyahu hearing about it. But it's interesting here now it says that Mattatyahu actually killed a bunch of the people that were coming after them, right? So that's something that we didn't have in First Maccabees or Gemara. Gemara doesn't mention the battle at all. Partially because I'm sure as a lot of us have heard, the rabbis were like a little bit uncomfortable with this idea of Hanukkah just being about a military victory, right? So then we have this, you know, we kind of ask like, well, where's God in the story, right? So many have said that the rabbis, in their discomfort, decided, or, you know, however we want to look at it, said there's got to be a way that God was involved in this. God must have acted in history somehow. Okay, there was some oil. So some say that the rabbis sort of came up with this idea of oil. Hard to say. It's clear that there are a couple of different tellings of the story, but it's just interesting to note. So just continuing here. So then Bagris goes to Antiochus and he says, basically he sort of like snitches on all the Israelites, saying like, you issued this decree, and none of them are following it. And if you go forward here, the temple is breached. And let's see what we got here towards the end here. Okay, so I'm going to start reading from verse 61, which is on the third to last, oh my god, third to last page here, at the bottom of the page. And Mattatyahu went forth that day with his sons and fought the enemy. And the God of heaven delivered all the mighty men of the enemy into their hands, and slew many among them, slaying all who were armed with swords, or who drew a bow, all the captains of the army and their lesser officers, so that none remained, for the remnant fled to the distant provinces. And now jumping down to verse 67, we can be doing some more jumping around. When King Antiochus heard that Bagris the wicked and all the captains who were with him were slain, he embarked upon a boat and fled to a distant province. And it came to pass that wherever he landed, they rebelled against him and called him the coward. And after these things, the sons of the Hasmoneans came into the sanctuary, restored the gates, repaired the breaches, and cleansed the hall of the dead and all its impurity. And here we go. And they sought pure olive oil with which to light the menorah. But they found only one little vessel sealed with the seal of the high priest that they knew to be pure. And it contained oil that was only sufficient for one day. But the God of heaven, who caused his presence to dwell in the sanctuary, gave his blessing, and it sufficed to light the menorah for 8 days. And that's on verse 70. So this is where we get in Megillat Antiochus, also known as Megillat HaChashmonim, this the story of the oil, right? Which we all know. Which I think is just so fascinating. I just want to sort of take a couple comments, like, how is this landing with you? Is this like confusing? Is this blowing your mind? Is this sort of like whatever, anything really?
Sometimes I have difficulty explaining what Hanukkah's about.
Mm-hmm. So I'm gonna. Mm-hmm.
Maybe there's more to it than a lot of people suspect.
Mm-hmm. So we're saying that sometimes it's difficult to explain what Hanukkah's about, and maybe there's more to it.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe just more complicated in detail than a lot of people suspect.
Sure.
I think people oversimplify it, and all Hanukkah's about is just oil that lasted 8 days and
Mm-hmm.
on and on.
So maybe it's a much more complex story than just the miracle of the oil. Yeah. Great. Anything else? It's okay. Uh-huh.
The 67 war was won by ordinary means and miraculous means.
So we're saying that the 67, there was an old joke about, actually, are you comfortable using the microphone? Joey, would you mind?
Oh, I tell a joke in the microphone. It's a lot of pressure.
It's all right. You know what? If you're going to practice your tight five, this is the place to do it. Not right now, but, at another time.
No, it was an old. I hope. Sorry if I get this wrong, but the 67 war was won by ordinary means and miraculous means.
Okay.
The ordinary means, God interfered. The
Mhm.
miraculous means, our military was actually better than their military.
Right.
So in this case, we got some of that going on in here too.
Mhm.
I mean, I see a miracle in this story that basically a family of guerrilla fighters besieged a city and
Mhm.
won twice.
Right.
That's incredible.
Mhm.
But on top of that, they said, well, okay, but as you said, we have to have divine intervention
Mm-hmm.
explicitly shown in here someplace. So we do the oil.
Right.
But I'm glad you gave these 3 sources. I wonder what order these were written in.
Right.
That they would have that.
I do. So just want to give you a sense of like how these works were dated. Thank you for that. So First Maccabees was written anywhere from like 135 to 104 BCE, before the Common Era, so before the year 0. Megillat Antiochus was written anywhere from 100 CE to 700 CE, right? So that's the Common Era. And then the Talmud was compiled between the 3rd and the 8th century. So that's why I was saying earlier, it's kind of hard to really, I could do, probably with more scholarly research, I could have found maybe some more precise dating, but like, it is kind of hard to say which came first. It's kind of like a chicken and egg question, like which part of the story emerged first. It's hard to say because of all the overlap. But that's part of the reason why I wanted to give you all these resources and why the sheet is so long, because I would love for everyone to like have it and like read it and look at it and sort of think about how it is that we tell stories and how it is that we tell this story and why. Because I think that it speaks a lot to like how we have experiences in our lives that are sort of inexplicable or even historical moments, and we ask, okay, well, where is God in this, right? How do I make sense of this story, whether it's good or whether it's bad? And it's sort of it's a very human form of storytelling. It's a very ancient form of storytelling that we actually do in our everyday lives. So I just wanted to offer that as a bit of an exploration of the Hanukkah story to think about throughout the rest of Hanukkah. And yeah, thank you so much for going on this sort of storytelling quest with me today. It's been a lot of fun. So we're gonna go ahead and bench. Is there anybody that ate bread who would like to lead?
Babies in front of their fathers or putting the fathers in front of their babies and everything.
Yeah.
Try to overcome.
Yeah, there's definitely relevance to today, which is what makes it so jarring this year, I think.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
What's going on in Israel?
Yeah. So we're gonna go ahead and bench here. Joe, do you remember what page it's on in here?
Oh, on the Lulav Shalom?
Yeah.
On page 87.
87, thank you.
Yeah, but I didn't have bread, so I'm not going to lead.
Okay.
87, Lulav Shalom.
Great. So some pages. Would you like to lead us? Amam b'shuv Adonai et shivat Zion hayinu geolim az yimale seol pinu ushonenu rina az yomu agoyim higdil Adonai lasot imele higdil Adonai lasot imanu hayinu smechim shuv Adonai et shevitenu kaf pikdim banek Azorim bedima berina gigzoru Aloch yelechu vacho nose meshech azara Yavo berina nose alumotav Yehi Shem Adonai mevarech me'atav yad olam ברוך אלוהינו שחררנו משאלות ובו חיינו. ברוך הוא ברוך שמו. ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם. אזן את העולם כולו בטובו בחן בחסד וברחמים. הוא נותן לחם לכל בשר כי לעולם חסדו וטובו הגדול תמיד לא חסר לנו ולא חסר לנו מזון לעולם ועד בעבור שמו הגדול כי הוא זן ופרנס להכל ומטיב לכל ומכין מזון לכל בריאותיו אשר ברא ברוך אתה אדוני הזן את הכל. בכל שעה. בטוב ואכלת ושבעת וברכת את אדוני אלוהיך.
Amen.
and Amen. Shalom, amen. 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 Lanu Leliyahu Hanavi Harachaman Ishlach Lanu Et Eliyahu Avi Lezcholato Vivase Lanu Vivase Lanu Vivase Lanu Besorot Tovot Shuot Benechamot Amen. 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 Adoram Hosei Shalom Bimramav Uyasei Shalom Aleinu Ve'okol Yisrael Ve'imeru Amen Riu Adonai Kedoshav Yom Sol Yireav Hodul Adonai Kitov Ki Leolam Chaso Padeach Et Yadecha Mashmir Lechocha Eretzon Baruch HaGever Sheyiftach B'Adonai V'Ha'Adonai Miftacho Nar Hayiti V'Gam Zakanti V'Lo Ra'iti Tzadik Nezav V'Zaru Mevakesh Lachem V'Zaru Mevakesh Lahem Adonai Ozamo Yitem Adonai Yivarech Et Amo V'Shalom Yesher Koach. All right. So we're gonna continue now with our Vit, which can be found on page 264 of your Red Lev Shalem. And again, remember that we're going to be flipping forward to page 430, sort of right after Modim in the Amidah. So just hold the page so we can then flip back to it when we're there. All right, page 264. רחום יכפר עוון ולא ישית, להרבה להשיבה פה ולא ירא כל החמתו. אדוני הושיע המלך יעננו ויום קוראנו. ברכו את אדוני המבורך. ברוך אדוני המבורך לעולם ועד. ומעביר יום ומביא לילה, ומבדיל בין יום ובין לילה, אדוני צבאות שמו, אלחי וקיים תמיד ימלוך עלינו לעולם ועד, ברוך אתה אדוני המעריב הרבים. הם חיינו ואורך ימינו, אלוהיהם נגי יומם ולילה, ואהבתך תסיר ממנו לעולמים. ברוך אתה אדוני אוהב עמו ישראל, עמו ישראל. שמע ישראל אדוני אלוהינו אדוני אחד. אדוני אלוהיכם אמת. ומלכותו ברצון קיבלו עליהם משה ומרים ובני ישראל הכנו שירה בשמחה רבה ואמרו כולם מי כמוך בעלים אדוני מי כמוך נדר בקודש נורא דהילות עושה פלא מלכותך ראו בניך וקיים לפני משה זה עליינו ואמרו אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד ונאמר כי פדר נא את יעקב גלום יד חזק ממנו ברוך אתה אדוני גאל ישראל. מסכימנו אדוני אלוהינו לשמור צאתנו ובאנו לחיים ולשלום את אבי עד עולם ברוך אתה אדוני שומר עמו ישראל לעד. כי המלכות שלך היא עולמי עד תמלוך בכבוד כי אין לנו מלך אלא אתה ברוך אתה אדוני המלך בכבודו תמיד ימלוך עלינו לעולם ועד ועל כל המסע. Rise for Hatzi Kaddish. יתגדל ויתקדש שמי רבה ועלמא דברה כי אותה והמליך מלכותי בחיי חון וביום החון ובחיי כל בית ישראל וגלה בזמן קריב אמרו אמן. יהי שמי רבה מברך לעולם מעל מיה יתברך וישתבח ויתפאר ויתרומם ויתנשא ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתהדר שמי קודשה בריחו לעילה מן כל ברכתה ושירתה תושבחתה ונחמתה תמירן בעלמא ואמרו אמן. Continue with the silent Amidah on page 270. Remember to turn forward to page 430 for Al Hanisim. יתגדל ויקדש שמי רבה. בעלמא דברה וכתבם מלכותי, וחייכון וביומכון ובחיי תגור בית ישראל, בגלה בזמן קריב ואמרו אמן. יהי שמי רבה מברך לעולם על מעלמיה. יתברך וישתבח ויתפאר ויתרומם ויתנשא ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתעלה שמי תקודשה בריחו. אלא מן כל ברכתה ושירתה תושבחתה ונחמתה תמירן בעלמא ואמרו אמן. ויהי אמר ה' אלוהינו ולעולם. יקראני בעיניהו עמו אנוכי בצרה אכל זהו ואכבדהו אורך ימים אשפיעהו והריהו בשועתי אורך ימים אשפיעהו והריהו בשועתי. Hold that page and we'll flip to page 216. Missing on. ויפתחו בך יודעי שמך כי לא עזבת דורשך אדוני חפץ למען צדקו יגדיל תורה ויאדיר. Flip back to page 280 for Kaddish Shalem. יתגדל ויקדש שמי רבה. בעלמא דברה כי אותי ואמליך מלכותי בחייכון וביומכון ובחיי תגור בית ישראל בגלה בזמן קריב ואמרו אמן. יהי שמי רבה מברך לעולם על מעלמיה. יתברך וישתבח ויתפאר ויתרומם ויתנשא ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתעלה שמי תקודשה בריחו. לעילא מן כל ברכתה ושירתה תושבחתה ונחמתה תמירן בעלמא ואמרו אמן. תתקבל שותהון ובבטהון לכל ישראל וכל מלכון דשמיא ואמרו אמן. יהי שלמה רבה מן שמיא ואחים עלינו וכל ישראל ואמרו אמן. עושה שלום במרומיו הוא יעשה שלום עלינו וכל ישראל וכל יושבי תבל ואמרו אמן. עלינו לשבח לאדון הכל. כתוב בתורתך אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד, ונאמר בחיי אדוני למלך על כל הארץ, ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד ושמו אחד. Kaddish Tom, Warner's Kaddish, can be found on page 282. יתגדל ויתקדש שמי רבה, בעלמא דברה כי אותי ואמליך מלכותי, בחייכון וביומכון ובחיי תגור בית ישראל, ועגלה בזמן קריב ואמרו אמן. יהי שמי רבה מברך לעולם ולעלמיה. יתברך וישתבח ויתפאר ויתרומם ויתנשא ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתהלל שמי תקודשה בריחו. לעילא מן כל ברכתה ושירתה תושבחתה ונחמתה תמירן בעלמא ואמרו אמן. יהי שלמה רבה מן שמיא וחיים עלינו ועל כל ישראל ואמרו אמן. עושה שלום במרומיו הוא יעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל ואמרו amen. All right, everybody. So we're going to light Hanukkah candles together. And Joey, would you be willing to lead Havdalah after we light Hanukkah candles?
Do we have to light the Havdalah candles first?
No, we have to light the Hanukkah candles first. Yeah. All right. So, the third night of Hanukkah, and as you can see, we're publicizing the miracle right outside this very window here. Right. Actually, how about this? How about you light the candle?
Okay.
And I will fizzle us together.
Okay.
And if anybody would like to gather close, feel free to do so.
Help me light it.
What's that? So if you open that up, let's see, can you see?
Yeah, Can everyone see me okay on Zoom? Can everyone see me?
Let's see if we can see the candles. There we go. All right.
Perfect.
That one first, and then you're gonna light from this. Ready? Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kishanu b'mitzvotav, v'tzivanu le'adlik ner shel Chanukah. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, she'asa nisim lavoteinu bayamim hahem b'azman hazeh. Ma'ozu Yeshuati lechaga'el leshabeach, tikon betefilati b'shadonan hazabeach, me'ezavim matbeach mitzad hanabeach, az emor b'shir mizmor Chanukat hamizbeach, az emor b'shir mizmor Chanukat hamizbeach. Happy Hanukkah, everybody. And Joey is going to lead us in Havdalah, which can be found
Say it again, loud.
page
Happy Hanukkah.
283. Happy Hanukkah.
Happy Hanukkah.
Does anybody want to get the lights?
I'll get them.
All right, great. Thank you.
Someone hold the candle because I'm not comfortable with wax burning me.
Sure.
Now we're doing Abdallah. Boy, guys, ready? He's lighting the candle. Come here, come here. Ready? Yeah, go in here.
Let's see.
Which one is it? No, this one? This is Abdallah.
All of them.
Yeah, it's all.
There we go.
Wow.
Yeah.
You want to take it?
There we
Minha
go.
Yeshuati,
Atah
Velo Echad, Ki Ozi V'Zimrat Yah, Adonai Vayhi Li Shua, Ushabtem Mayim Besason, Mimanei HaYeshua, Adonai HaYeshua, Alamecha Birchatecha Selah, Adonai Tzevaot, Imanu, Miskablanu, Elohei Yaakov Selah, Adonai Tzevaot, Ashrei Adam Boteach Bach, Adonai Hoshia, Hamelech Yameinu V'Yochoreinu, LaYehudim, Hayeta Orah, V'Simcha V'Sason, V'Kar Kain Tihyelanu, Kos Yeshuot Esah, U'Shem Adonai Ekra, Yai Nai 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 Nai, Yai Nai 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 Nai. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, borei peri hagafen.
Amen.
Amen. Say amen.
Drink it.
Yeah.
Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, borei mini v'samim.
Amen. It's okay. It's okay. No, you're doing perfect.
You're doing perfect.
Can we pass it around?
Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, borei milrei ha'esh. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, Amavil ben kodesh lechol ben or lechoshech, ben Yisrael amin ben yom hashavi'i l'shishim me'hamaseh, Baruch atah Adonai Hamavil ben Kodesh Lechol.
Ready for the sizzle?
Ready for the sizzle.
All right. Yay. Shavua
Tov,
Shavua
Tov,
Shavua Tov, Shavua Tov, Shavua Tov, Shavua Tov, Shavua Tov, Shavua Tov. A good week, a week of peace. May Zion's strength increase. A good week, a week of peace. May Zion's strength increase. Eliyahu Hanavi, Eliyahu Hatishbi, Eliyahu, Eliyahu, Eliyahu Agiladi, Bimhera B'Yameinu, Yavo Aleinu, Imashiach ben David, Imashiach ben David. Shavua Tov, everyone. Thank you for coming out and making a minyan. It's so special to have everyone here every Shabbat afternoon, so thank you.
Happy Hanukkah.
Shavua Tov, AJ and
Thank
Typo.
you.
Shavua Tov, everybody. Happy Hanukkah.
I'm glad that's. I know, isn't it? It's so wild that they're all.
I know all the songs, they all the blessings.
Yeah.
Wow, it's like I remember this all when I was young.
Yeah. Shavua Tov, everyone on Zoom. Thank you so much for making it out and your patience with us navigating microphones and computers in here.
Thank you for the teaching. It's very interesting, especially the history.
Nico.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. AJ was thanking you. We didn't get the source sheet though sent out.
I know there was some sort of disconnect in communication. I sent it on Wednesday, and I somehow it didn't.
But what I was about to say, if it works, if it could get sent with next week's.
Maybe I'll send an email. Yeah, I think that's a good idea. Yeah, because it would be great to have all the sources to look at.
This was an interesting one.
Yeah. All right, folks. Thank you so much. I think we're probably going to sign off here.
And thank
Great
you
job,
for the
Nico.
Thank you for the cute person who's been dancing in the front.
Oh yeah, having a great time.
Yes.
All right.
Say hello to Tamal.
Tamal, shalom, מה שלומך? מדברת עברית?
היא מדברת עברית,
אנגלית, עברית. וואו.
Shavua Tov, everyone. Happy Hanukkah.
It was good. Anyway, but overall doing well. Thank you. No tea for you? Yeah, I can accept that. They don't have about there. That's
very kind. Thank you.
Yeah.
We're still kind of figuring out how things go now that we're empty nesters.
That's where you were. Where were you? Sweetheart, you were just like there. Reading all your notes every day. God him addicted from his favorite place in the world.
Thank you. Yeah, and if
Whatever you want.
you know what, it's funny when they sent out mail. When you can only really use it when you actually know. And when you treat it from a link, it's like double font. I don't know what that is. And I was like, oh, then you turn it into PDF. So
Yeah, this is tomorrow.
and thank God they printed it on the beginning because I was like, I don't want to kill